All right, looks like we are live. Let's go ahead and roll a commercial to get started.
In society, people take doctors' time very valuably. They realize that that's something that can't be wasted. There were some people who weren't looking at barbers' time the same way, and we didn't agree with that. Barbers are professionals. They're educated. They help people's lives in a major way. They're pillars of communities. Their time matters.
Squire is built for everyone. So it's built for the barbers, it's built for the clients, it's built for the shop, and they thought of that for everyone.
I've used a lot of other applications, appointment systems, and it's never been as efficient as Squire was for me. It's like an all-in-one solution, right? You have managing the appointments is a lot easier. You give the platform for people to book. I could talk so many good things about Squire, bro. I could keep going.
All right. So welcome. Come on. We are going live right now on Instagram and YouTube. This is going to be a great live. Today, we are talking about how you can unlock your brand. We're going to be interviewing a few people. This is going to be great. So we've been working on this for a while, just setting up this idea, this workshop to be able to empower existing users and to empower individuals that aren't on Squire's platform. And our goal really is today is to talk about branding, on how do you unlock your brand. That's the big question. So thank you guys for joining. If you guys are joining on Instagram or on YouTube, if you're on my page, Effects Apps, or you're joining from Squire's page, let me know where you're from. Just go ahead and put where you're from in the comments. Want to see, just to get started here, where you guys are from. Go ahead and put where you from in the comments. I'm originally from Philly, but I am living in Florida right now. So I would put like Philly /FL, right? Because I'm from Florida now. But where you guys from? I see Vegas. I see Texas, New York, baby. Okay, I see you guys. Cali. All right, I see a couple. Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island. Great. So thank you guys for joining. You guys are joining from all over. We really, really appreciate you. And today, guys, we're going to be talking about branding. How do you brand yourself? Why is it so important to create your own brand? This is something that, I've been talking about for years. As you guys know, I've been doing Effects Apps. I got a few things going on here, got a few people coming in, but I've been doing Effects Apps for years, and I've always talked about why it was so important to create your own brand, to make sure that people are learning who you are and not just a marketplace, right? There are some apps out there. A lot of them are really betting the house on the marketplace, saying, hey, we're going to build up a marketplace. And now there are many marketplaces. But how do you stand out? What are you doing to stand out within your marketplace? I know that with Squire, one of the things that they've done recently with Google My Business, to be able to make it available for you to be able to book right through Google. It's a very powerful thing. And the reason why that's so powerful is because Google is the largest marketplace in the world. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that you guys understand that branding yourself is the most important thing, right? That so that people remember who you are. But this word branding is thrown around a lot, right? Like, brand yourself. What does it mean to have a good brand, to have a legacy brand? Or the other day we were talking about a premium brand, different ways to talk about an expensive brand, a luxury brand, right? So what does the word brand actually mean? What does that mean? Now, the thing is, right now I'm looking at a bunch of you guys come in, and I'm seeing Tito, Fade and Comb. I see Boss Man. I see a bunch of different brands on JP, the Symmetry Pro, Iced Out Barbers on there, right? You got MLB Razor, Rudy, right? These are all different brands. These are different ways that you're trying to brand yourself. You're saying, this is my name. What we're going to be talking about, the way I call that is your brand identity. Let me bring this up so you guys can see it. There is a difference between a brand identity and a brand strategy. Okay, so your brand identity is going to be the Emma, Razor Rudy. I am the professional one, right? These are all your brand identity. So today we're not going to be talking about so much what is your brand identity, because you've already established that. You already know what your brand identity is. What I want to talk about today in this example that I'm showing you right here, let me point to it right here. Oh, this way. This right here, right? At the top here, you see brand identity. That's the top of the iceberg, right? The top of the iceberg is your brand identity. That's what most people see. But what is your brand strategy? Okay. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How to build connection, how to create an experience with your brand, and then how to build customer loyalty. So that's a few things that we're going to be going over in today's workshop. Again, how to build the connection, experience, and build in brand loyalty. That's what's important here. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and look at this. Let's look at this together here. I'm going to bring myself up here. So this is how you're going to unlock your brand. Okay. You have your brand identity, right? But now we're going to unlock it by building a brand strategy. All right. So we got Corey and Coco in here as well. So let me go ahead and bring these guys to the stage before we dive in. Let me introduce my guests. I'm going to be interviewing them in a moment here. Let me bring in, I got Corey, and Coco's there. He's coming in a second. I got Corey and Coco. Good afternoon, Corey. How's it going?
What's going on, y'all? Man, I'm doing well. I'm blessed.
No problem. So I just want to make sure. Can you see the presentation on your end?
Yes, I can see the unlock your brand. I can see the iceberg here. I can see you as well.
Awesome. So guys, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking with Corey and Coco. And what I'm going to do, Corey, is I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about unlocking your brand, different strategies that people can use, and just talk about brand history. Before we go there, right, let me ask you a few questions just to get that started with you here. I'm going to go ahead and remove Coco where he's trying to get himself set up there. Oh, there you go.
I'm back. Oh yeah, no, I didn't realize I was muted and my camera was off. Sorry about that. How you guys doing?
No problem. How you doing, Coco? Where you coming in from?
So I'm inside the mobile barbershop right now, outside of my house. I was watching my son's baseball game. Is right down the street, so I just had to pop in here real quick.
Yeah, no problem. So let's talk a little bit about branding. You guys have built your own brand, right? I'm gonna direct this question towards Corey first. What does branding mean to you?
I mean, to me, I feel like branding is establishing a community around yourself. I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Like just being like not only a resource in your community, but just being able to almost edify yourself in your community by your actions. So just being able to be in your community, around and present, and that way people know about you, and being able to not only be stuck behind the chair, but being able to diversify yourself, whether that be with merchandise, products, whatever the case may be, social media as well. But just being able to bring yourself opportunity based on the way that you present what you have going on.
Absolutely. I love that. It's about branding is about community. I love that. So same question to you, Coco, before we go into like the history of branding. What does branding mean to you?
Well, I mean, definitely not for nothing. I mean, that big ups to that. Like, I'm a big community guy. If anybody sees any of the things that I do, like, so that strikes me in the heart at first. So, shout out to you, bro. Further to add to that, I think that branding is, for some of the guys like myself who have tried to get away from, the gnat of having your name be the brand, Coco as the brand, or so on and so forth. It's like, you have to put a lot of integrity behind it. So brand to me is everything. It's the life of things. So like, when you look into the nucleus of who your people are going to recognize you by what your brand is. You know what I mean? This is everything from the start to the finish. You know what I mean? So like community is the beginning, family is the second, and your team is everything. So who
looks like we haven't. There you go. You back? Oh,
Yep. I'm in.
No problem. So no, I've heard branding is community, branding is your family, things like that. That's great stuff, guys. Thank you guys so much. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and start this presentation. I want you guys to just stay tuned and we'll go over. So what I'm gonna talk about now is I'm gonna talk about the history of branding. Where does the word brand come from? So let's go ahead and let's move forward in this presentation. So we're going to talk about what is brand. Where does the word brand come from in the first place? Okay. So let's talk about a timeline. Okay. So there used to be a bartering system. So branding really comes from this idea of bartering with someone. And it used to be back in the day, they would have like, they would barter with like goats and cows and like you grew corn and I got cows. So you give me some corn, I'll give you one of my cows. And when everybody would bring their cows to the marketplace, they would get lost. Like, yo, that's my cow, that's yours, that's mine. And so what they started doing was they literally created a brand and branded that cow. So they knew that, hey, that one's mine, right? So you can identify which one was mine. And then we went from just kind of a bartering system to currency, right? Bringing about different currencies to be able to, instead of going from product to product, we were actually moving and using currency to be able to do that. So let's talk about present day. How would we define branding in the present day? Because that's where it started. And it's exactly what Corey and Coco are talking about. Jeff Bezos talked about this. So in 2024, Jeff Bezos says, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. Okay, so it started off kind of like identifying what it is that you sold and how you could move throughout the marketplace. But then it eventually turned into this is what Jeff Bezos says about brand. Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. How do you create a strong brand? How do you unlock your brand? That is one of the most important things that I want to talk about today. How do you unlock your brand? All right, let's keep going here in the presentation, right? We talked about what is your brand and gave you a little bit about the history of brand and where even the word brand, the word brand comes from. So I think in part of this iceberg, right? So the top of it is your brand identity. Corey London, Coco Fernandez, Mobar Barbershop. That's the top. That's what most people see. How do we get people to connect with it? So let's talk about that. How do we get people to connect with your brand so that you can build out this idea of who you are and what it is that you do? So the main thing that I want to talk about in connection and building your brand and helping people bridge that gap and connecting it is about your reputation and then remembering. Because there's two things, right? And I'll bring you guys back up right here on this point too. There's two parts here. And tell me if you guys agree. It's not only about your reputation, which is your reputation is how the customer sees you, but then there's also you having a reputation of your customer. How do you remember your customer? How do you keep tabs on, what's important for the customer? So let me ask you guys this, and I'll direct this to Coco first. How have you protected or even built up your reputation?
So I'll say for me, it was a little bit different. And some people do it in a really orthodox way. A lot of people are, service or punctuality and stuff like that. And while I preach a lot of that stuff, the nature of my business and the way that I move around and the way that I've had to take barbering outside of the box in order to meet everything that I had to get to build this brand. It's sometimes you have to make up for areas like that. When you have to make an excuse for being tardy because you had to deal with something that was, super of priority that just popped up, and to be able to look at a customer in the face and be like, oh, well, you're paying me this, or this is the value, but you're never hearing oh, I'm coming to this place for this, you know what I mean? So you have to make sure that if you're going to offer something, it has to be to the top notch quality. So from my stance, it's you're going to get the best product from me at that time. And now I'm able to really like brush up and tailor on my brand to bring the punctuality and the client service and the experience now, because I'm a little bit older and I'm a little bit more grounded. But when you take something and you start running with it, you have to really like pick where you put your preference, you know. So I think that's kind of big.
No, I love that. I love that. And rep, it's funny because you're not talking about right having like the most aesthetics or the brand new chair or anything like that. It's more about punctuality, customer service. I love that. So Corey, the same question to you. How have you built your reputation? And also in that, how have you not only built your reputation but helped to protect your reputation in building your brand?
Well, I mean, for me, it's kind of like a two-part answer, right? So for new clients, it's perceived value. So with new clients, they've never gotten my service before. They've never sat in my chair. They haven't experienced what I do. So it's really just controlling that perceived value. Whenever they come to me, whenever they're booking like the appointment or they're looking at my Instagram, my social medias, whatever the case may be, do they see value in the things that I'm doing, and do they put like respect on it, essentially? And then for the clients that are coming back time and time again, do I have an infrastructure that's in place that can support them? So, I mean, I think for me, it's definitely a two-part answer, just definitely having a perceived value for the clients that are new. So that way, whenever they're sitting in the chair, it's almost like if you were to meet somebody, for example, Albert Einstein, you know, right? You're going to put a certain level of respect on him because you know exactly what he's done in his career, and that's evident. So I like to show those things to new clients. And then for my returning clients, having an infrastructure that's built for them to where they can know that they can come back and it's an easy process and the work is going to speak for itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what it means to create your reputation. When you're building your reputation online and you're posting, showing what it is that you do. I like what Gary Vee says. He says, you know, don't create, document, right? Document your process, because what you're really trying to do with your reputation is you're trying to get people to know, like, and trust you, right? That's what you're trying to do online. Get people to know, like, and trust you, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, something that I think most people don't think about when they're thinking about building brand is also remembering the customer, because I believe that what happens is you have a situation where a person comes to you for the first time, they're a customer, but how do you convert that customer into a client? And the way you're going to convert that customer into a client is by remembering something about them, whether it's just having conversation about, you know, hey, where'd you come from? You know, how many kids do you got? Oh, my daughter just got her license. And trying to make that connection with the customer is one, building up your reputation, and at the same time remembering the customer to try to convert them. So let me ask you guys some questions just because when I think most people would think about coming together to build out your reputation, but also there is this idea of remembering your customer. How do you guys do that? How do you work on remembering who your customer is and what they need? I'll go with either one of you. Corey, Coco went last time. He went first. Corey, how about you? What do you think about this idea of like trying to do your best to remember your customer?
I feel like my customers all honestly have their own personality, so it's kind of hard for me to forget them because they're all so unique. They're all very different. Like I have like my clientele is just so diversified, but that was intentional on my end, right? So I don't just cut one very specific demographic. I cut so many different types of people with so many different types of hair structures and textures. So I think for me it's a little bit simpler, like on that end as far as remembering them. But I guess it would just be like attention to detail. That's the best way I could put it, right? So no matter who the client is that sits in the chair, the process is the exact same. So I mean, whether or not I remember them or they don't, I'm going to always just connect with whoever is sitting in my chair, right? So it's like, I'm going to ask you, how are you doing? I can feel your vibe. You know, I'm going to talk about things that are just going on, current events. But whenever it comes to the hair, you know, it's just attention to detail. Like my process is so meticulous and it's so militant that it's going to be pretty much the same service every single time, you know, so.
Absolutely. And you, Coco, what do you think about this concept of doing your best to remember the customer?
So just like he said, like, you know, a lot of the intimate experience when you start talking to people, you get to break into like, okay, this person's opening up. You get to remember things about them, about their everyday, and you know, you just start making it a natural thing. And once you get to the hair part, and just like it's you end up, you know, really taking a focus on that area. So once they feel that love on that end, like, oh, they're really trying to reciprocate something that's different than any experience I've ever gotten. So the difference between me and my process is that I know that at the end of it, I have like symmetry in mind. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
regardless of everything, we're gonna connect all the dots. So when you leave, if now we exchange phone numbers, you just book me on Squire. Now you got my contact. I tell you, listen, you can book me on Squire, but if you want to maybe chat about availability and like times that work better for you, or if you want to know about a product or how you almost
I
feel
think.
as
Oh,
if
yeah. No,
you
I'm
lost
sorry.
me.
You cut. No, you cut out for a second.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no. So like once you open up a door like that for the client, you know, you almost make them feel like more than just a client, friend, family, and stuff like that. So I think that's really important. But yeah, like just having that overall like, you know, want to service the person that's coming into your barbershop. When I have new clients, I like back in the day, I used to get a little bit nervous. Like it's like, all right, you know, I've never cut this person before, but now I embrace it. I look at it as like, all right, well, I'm going to get to experience something else. I'm going to get to add to my education with this new texture. And so, you know, you
Mm.
kind of use it as like a challenge, and that's like a, you know, a new level up.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about next. What we're going to talk about next is the experience. So now that you're creating connection with your customer, making sure that you have a high quality experience, create a good experience from beginning to end. In the beginning, make sure you have a good offer, and this is something that I think Corey was alluding to earlier when he was saying that perceived value, right? Having that perceived value. So having a good offer is very important. And when I say a good offer, I don't mean a discount. Most people think a good offer means offer them a discount, a free haircut, or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about at all. What I mean is adding value to the individual, adding value. How do you, what are some ways? And I've seen both of your brands. And again, this is our first time meeting, but I've seen both of your brands, and I know that they're very high value. How do you add value to your customers? And I'll go with Coco first this time. What do you think about adding value as opposed to offering a discount?
So when I look at, you know, the whole value perspective, you know, I'm not really just looking at the final product, even though like I'm pretty standard on what I like to see. So all
Mhm.
of my guys, they're all trained to have an eye for, you know, hairline and fade and placement and spacing and all that stuff. So like even though that's a great focal point for me, I like to look at when a customer comes into my shop, you know, sometimes they feel so comfortable to want to stay there for a longer time than just for their service, because there's
Mm,
so much more added value into the space, you know.
right.
So like just the people that are coming to seek out our service and the network that I've kind of, you know, made in my community, it's like, all right, well, you know, this is where we chop it up. So if you think about like an environment that's in an inner city, and you think about the old school Chicago barbershop vibe, like, you know, like the movies and stuff like that, it's just like, who are the people you attract from your demographic that make it so that your people can build inside of your space? How can they get access to products and different knowledge, and, you know, maybe even a photo shoot? Or, you know, what can you do inside of your collaborative space now that separates you apart from everybody else to make that person feel like that's why I'm locked in here? You know, it ain't just about the cut, but wow, they got the best cut. But oh, you know what I mean? What
Yeah,
else
no,
comes
I
along
love
with it?
that. Add value, photo shoot, just adding more, right? And go ahead, Corey, what do you think about this idea that between discounting and adding value?
Yeah, discounting is something. I mean, it's not really, you know, what I mean, my thing. I'm not really big into discounting for my clients just because I feel like you leave too much room for um if you give a client an inch, they're just gonna take a mile. You know what I mean?
Mm,
That's just the nature of the beast. So I don't even like to start there. Um, But for me, it's like it's two things that are really big for me. Education is one of them. So the more that I educate myself, the more that I, make myself a better haircutter just in general, the better service that I'll be able to give just in general. And then besides that too is communicating whatever it is that I'm doing, whether that be education, adding value to the space that I'm in, whether it be like we were talking about earlier, the chair or new clippers or whatever, really bringing my clients into the community that I've created with all of my other clients as well, and make them feel like they're supporting me, because truthfully at the end of the day they are, so just allowing them to see that you're not only coming into this and paying me for a haircut and it's something that's extremely transactional. It's not that. Whenever you sit in my chair with me, it's like now you're allowing me to not only be a part of your life, but you're allowing me to pursue my dreams. And I just talk about it with them, like this month I'm going to Paris, you know what I mean? That's all kind of like thanks to you guys. And whenever I come back, this is what I'll be able to do. And XYZ. So that way they feel like whenever they are paying me for that haircut, that premium price, that it's not for nothing. It's not for me to just sit here behind the chair and take from them, but I'm going back and putting that money into whatever it is that I'm doing, into my services, into my craft, to return that same value back to them,
That's big.
No, I appreciate that. And that's what you're saying is like, okay, offer them more. And that's actually what we're talking about. So in the beginning, you want to make sure that you have a good offer, but by the end of it, you want to make sure that you exceed expectations. So now we've kind of built this brand, right? And we're giving them an experience when they actually show up to the shop, and you create that engagement, and then you want to in some way exceed those expectations, right? Maybe they weren't expected to be able to get a great photo of a fresh haircut, or just a bottle of water, or just even having good music, right? Music without curse words or anything like that, to make it a good family-friendly atmosphere if that's what it is that you're doing. And these are little ways that you can exceed expectations, because again, what we're talking about is building brand, and everything speaks to your brand. The cleanliness of your location, the kind of music that you play, your social media, your website, your online booking. Obviously, we're working with Squire right now and talking about that and what that experience is like from beginning to end. So let's keep going here. So now that we've created a good experience for the customer, we've kind of made the connection initially. Now let's talk about customer loyalty and creating brand loyalty, because now I made that connection with you. I've had a good experience, but now you want to build customer loyalty. So what I wanted to talk about here was creating a plan. This is an interesting concept. I actually talked with Tyreek Jackson about this, where he doesn't do like a free shape up, but this idea of like a very easy touch point to come back, whether it's and this idea of a free touch up or a free shape up coming back in like a week or two, so that you get that rebooking. Or even I don't know if you guys do this, like you see a guy for the first time and you do a haircut, it may not be the full haircut. You're kind of like setting up the haircut, and you start having conversation with your customer to say, hey, next time we'll do this. In the next haircut, we'll do this. We're kind of, your line was kind of pushed back. So I'm going to fade it here, but I'm also going to not go too deep. And next time you come back. So always telling your customer like, hey, next time, this is what the next experience is going to look like. And that's what I mean by creating a plan. Because now I know it works with me when my barber tells me that, like, hey, look, we're going to do this next time. It kind of makes me feel like, okay, I'm going to have to come back and make sure I'm getting that next haircut. What are some ways that you guys have built loyalty with your brand and what you're doing?
I mean, really just communication, obviously. Like a big question that I'm normally asking my clients, especially new clients, is what's your overall goal? Like what ultimately, like what do you want your hair to look like? Are you growing it out for a specific reason to look a certain type of way? Do you eventually want to get color or whatever the case may be? Because I offer so many different services. So what's your overall goal? Like, what are you trying to get to? Or do you like what you have right now? And then secondly, what I learned from speaking to a lot of the people who work in the salon space, I feel like I've kind of crossed this path of being very much so incorporated salon and barbershop. But something that they taught me that's been really big for me and myself and my loyalty, I guess, brand loyalty would be pre-booking. So whenever I'm done with the client, you know, I will tell them like, look, you got a medium skin fade. Normally the maintenance on that would be about every 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now would be this date. This date I have these times available, and I'll book that next appointment while they're in the chair. So
Mhm.
that for me has been huge. And I feel like that's something that's really missing in the barbershop space, because you leave, they leave, and then you're hoping that they come book with you again, or maybe they get an email or text notification, but you're leaving too many variables up to chance and you're leaving too much for the client to do. So if I can book that next appointment while they're still in the chair, I know what my next week looks like, my next 2 weeks look like. I know how much I'm going to be making this month. What's my retention rate? So that's something that was huge and a big game changer for me, was like booking that next appointment whenever the service is done.
No, I love that. How about you, Coco? What do you think about how are some ways that you've created brand loyalty?
So, I mean, aside from like I said, my consultation process,
Mm,
it's super like inch by inch, and it's very intense. Like, you know, the conversation that we're having about your hair and about your cut and about where we're going, it's usually the duration of the cut, and you know, it stops in between. And most of the time, just like you said, the sell point of them knowing what the next cut holds for them and how
mm,
we're gonna reach the common goal, that's really big. But as a for the brand as a whole, you know, I've made it to the point where it's like, so I know that all of my people are instilled with a similar knowledge of the similar guidelines, like I said. And you know, I have this system that I've set up for cutting, and if anybody wants to use it, they use it. All of my guys that come in, my apprentices, anybody. And if you have your own style, that's fine. But
mm,
you know, when I'm able to bring somebody in and I can cut their hair, and they came for the attraction, and they came for, you know, what the hype was all about, when they can turn focus and say, all right, well, I'm at this price right now. I love the haircut, but I could definitely use a little breather right now. You know, I need to take a couple dollars off. The good thing is there's somebody down the line who already is ready to relieve me. They came here, they understand the concept now. They've got a
mm.
great guideline, and I got a young guy underneath me that's ready to grab them up. Whether so, my brother-in-law, he's inched up to the point where now he's almost at the same price as I am inside the shop, and he's only been cutting for what, 5 years or whatever, you know. So from my 14 years of my experience to trickle down to somebody else to instantly implement value, right?
Mm.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
for that to trickle down the line from the client to the barber, that's what kind of keeps everything locked into place. I have a safe space, that's what I call it, because you know, when I deal with the kids in the community, I do a lot of basketball, and I got to make sure that above sports, that we're in a safe environment. So when I go into the barbershop space, I make sure that everybody is in that safe space, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
No, I love that. I love that. That's actually the next point, and what I was going to go to in this in our presentation here was charity, right? That's another good way to build brand loyalty. So what Corey and Coco are talking about are having an in-depth consultation, and then having a rebooking right from the chair. Having Coco's talking about having the ability to be able to pass that customer off to another barber who's as efficient or as good, keeping the brand loyalty really high. That's amazing. And there's another way to do it. What I put here on this slide was, it's better to give than receive. Sponsor a local sports team. Give away free haircuts for kids with autism. That's something that I saw Angel Raw did recently. I know a lot of barbershops that do back to school bags, free haircuts for kids, things like that. So these are just some ideas that you guys can take from this that I've seen happen already. And so I wanted to pose that question to you guys. What
Yep.
are some ways, if you do, what are some of the ways that you guys give back to the community, to give some of the people who are watching this live some ideas on what to do?
Well, I mean, I'm by myself, so I don't have people necessarily that I could pass. Oh, my
Yeah.
bad. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Coco. Were you?
No, you're good. You're good. So
Oh,
just yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't have I don't have people necessarily, because I'm by myself, so I don't have people that
Mhm.
I can pass off to. I think it's for me, like with my clientele, right? I know that I'm at a premium price, but I'm just human, honestly, at the end of the day. Like I've come from really at the end of the day, nothing like so many other people, you know, who walk this path of life. So I think for me, it's just really being transparent with my client. I'm not gonna not cut a client because they're honest with me and being like, yo, bro, I can't, you know what I mean? I'm
I don't
not
have the
able to
money.
afford this right now. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, my business wasn't built on the dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
My business was built on the loyalty and off the
Mm.
people. So it's like, bro, if you've been coming to me since I moved to Arizona here in Arizona in 2019, and I started out at $40, I'm at $100 now. If you've been coming to me this whole time, I'm not just gonna shun you because you're not able to afford, you know what I mean, my growth.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that people like to make it seem like that's how the nature of the beast is, but that's not really how it is for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just me being honest, you know what I mean, with my clients. But that's where it's like when they're in the chair talking to them about what's going on in their life, really, and really caring about it, you know, and them being able to feel vulnerable enough, especially as a man, you know how hard it is to be able to tell somebody that you're struggling. So to be able to, for that person to be able to communicate to me like, yo, bro, like I want to stick with you, but I saw that there was a price increase. I'm not able to do that, but like let me know. And I'm like, bro, come on. I'm whatever works for you, let me know and we'll figure out a way to make it
Right. Right.
happen. Because at the end of the day, I'm a human being. Like I'm not gonna have you going to your job not being able to look your best, or I'm not gonna have
Mm.
you going home to your wife not being able to feel confident, or you know, it's just that's never what my business was intended to represent, and I'll never let the dollar amount, you know, confuse people and shun people away from coming to see me.
No, I appreciate that. That's amazing. Yeah, I know some people make it sound like if it's a price increase, it's like get down or lay down. But in reality, it's
Yeah.
not that easy. Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Coco? What are some of the things that you've done in the community to try to, build that brand awareness? One, and also, I'm sure that it creates a level of brand loyalty.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, this is a big one because like my whole like business and everything has been shaped on this. So you know, I don't ever really boast or post or brag about kind of like the things that I do or the way that I set things up and for my barbershop and my brand to tie into everybody around me. But you know, like I said, I do a basketball program that is for like over 96 kids in the city of Waltham. I don't shun anybody. I take everybody in, and now it's just kind of been like growing up off of like word of mouth and people donations. Like inside my truck right now, I got a whole bunch of waters that have been donated from families right here, just because you know like this has become a dual purpose. So the way that I invite the community in is at my barbershop. You know that if you're from Waltham, and that's the city that I'm from in Boston, and if you're from out here and you can't afford a haircut, you come to my shop and I have somebody that's ready to cut your hair at all times. And you know that's just kind of like if what's understood don't got to be explained in that aspect, right? But
Right.
you know I love to do community events. I have the mobile barbershop, and what I do is I take my apprentices and I bring them out to these events, and that becomes repetition for them. So
Mm.
people are getting free haircuts, and you know they're supporting somebody's dream at the same time. So they think that they're receiving something great, but in turn, we're also receiving something amazing. You know, so like I've just found so many different ways about keeping the whole community involvement thing to be a catapult for me. And knowing that like I started this whole mobile barbershop and the brick and mortar, I started it by myself. And you know, it kind of transitioned me into my garage. So when things really got difficult for me, it was like I knew that, all right, I'm not making money and people are seeking out only Coco as a barber, but they're not looking for Mobar as the brand because I can't pull myself away from my attraction to continue to focus on the brand. So
Right.
in that, and when that time got difficult, what I did was I just, you know, kept my faith and I gave out free stuff. Here, free haircuts, free workouts, just continue to try to be involved. And what it ended up doing was creating a recognition that allowed me to help bring people on and flourish and create what my brand is right now, you know, and that happened over just recent, you know, the past few years.
No, I love that. I love that because you're right. I see that Tyreek Jackson does that at Premier Barber Institute with students. And students, it's really good. They go to homeless shelters or they go to AA meetings, things like that, and they give people free haircuts because, like you said, it gives them repetition. They're learning on mannequins and eventually got to learn on other people. So that brings us, guys, to the end of kind of this presentation. The idea here was to create a brand strategy. So in conclusion, it was simple. How are you positioning yourself? How do you stand out, right? You want to build connections, give a great experience, and have and think about ways to create brand loyalty. Okay, so with that being said, I do want to finish up. I do have these 4 questions that I sent you guys previous, and I want to just have this final the last 20 minutes here I want to take to kind of answer these questions. And I think, Corey, you took the last one. So I'll go to Coco first. What advice would you offer to a new or existing barber on building a brand voice? What advice, I'll repeat the question, what advice would you offer to a new or existing barber on building a brand voice?
Wow, I mean, that's a big one. So I would probably have to say, first and foremost, to attack your niche. You got to find like what it is that is your specific ad and offer. Like, who are you and what is your brand circulated around? Once you figure out and find out that one thing, are you luxury? Are you cheap? Are you for the community? Are you for the famous? Like, what are you for? For me, my thing was convenience and no barriers, taking things outside of the box. Once I was able to say in 2015 in the summertime, like, yo, I have to figure out how to make this brand and this business, this thing that I'm so passionate and I think that I'm so great at, and how do I make it the next level so that nobody can say no to me? How I saw the last question on the circle was, who are your competitors? The answer is, you don't have any competitors. You're in competition with yourself and with your brand. How do you up yourself so that the demographic around you will follow in? Because there's a million people and a million clients all around you, and there's so much food to go around. But how are you separating yourself? Do you want to be regular? You know what I'm saying? So
right.
I feel like those are all things that tie right directly into that.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna pose the same question to you, Corey. What advice would you offer to a new or existing barber on building a brand voice?
I think I do a lot of education for especially students, right? And I think that with students especially, or if you're a new barber just in general, just continue to love it. Like, don't rush trying to be this or that or what you see on Instagram or don't start comparing yourself. Just really still love what you're doing. Fall in love with cutting hair. Love trying the difficulty of it, really trying to become a better barber. Focus on just trying to give the best haircut that you can possibly give. Obviously service oriented for sure. And then just try and find your purpose. Whoever it is that you look up to, whether that's the person that you saw in the barbershop who inspired you to become a barber, or the name brand that you see on Instagram, or whatever the case may be, whoever it is that you're looking up to while you're in the process of becoming the barber that you want to be, I would say mimic the things that they're doing. If you're seeing them post certain things, find out a way to kind of post similarly to them. I think that was a big thing for me. I drew inspiration from so many people whenever I first started cutting hair. And it's so easy to get discouraged because your haircuts don't look like the next person or the next person. And I hate people, especially young barbers, seeing them get discouraged because maybe they went to a battle and they didn't win, or they see haircuts on Instagram and their haircuts don't look like that. I just want them to still love like cutting hair, because whatever you want from this industry, that's what makes it so beautiful. You can attain that. Just be patient, give yourself some time. Love what you're doing, love the process, love the grind, and everything will come to you whenever it's supposed to. And you have to really walk by faith in this industry, because trying to rush your process is going to leave you discouraged. And I don't want to see people walk away from the industry, because we see too many great barbers walk away from the industry before their time is ready.
Wow, wow. No, I love that. This is great, man. I'm really enjoying this. We had a few people. I'm going to take a question from the audience here. One person asks, what do y'all think about subscription services for easy, quick cuts or services? Do y'all do subscriptions? Or if not, would you consider it?
I wouldn't, like, me personally, I wouldn't do it, but I would definitely encourage like my brand to do it, because there's always going to be barbers and people inside the barbershop that are not fully booked out. Like, let's just face it, like, not everybody just has it, you know what I'm saying? So like, there's going to be a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday. If you're able to fit some type of agreement into dead time, and I see people do university callings, and hey, if you're a student, come get this discount, anything like that to add subscription, why not? I think that a lot of barbers can benefit from, but I think that if you're somebody who tries to, or has to implement value to try to keep everything aligned with their price range and stuff like that, you can't really budge, or else people will start to look at it as, oh, like, oh, it doesn't keep the same
Right.
the
It
same
lessens
boom.
the value. It
Yeah,
lessens it.
you want to
100%.
make sure that you keep people as an attraction. You got to be an attraction, or if not,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so many. That's what I'm saying. With this industry, you get out of it whatever it is that you want. So if that's something that attracts you and that's something that you're thinking about doing and you think that you can do it successfully, go for it. But for me personally, that's not something that I would ever consider, but that doesn't mean that it wouldn't work for somebody else.
for
Right,
someone
right.
Like,
else, right?
I'm not going to tear down the next person because it's not going to work for me. So if it works for
Right,
you
right.
and that's something that you would like to do, then for sure, definitely pursue that, try it out, maybe do a trial for a month or two and see if you really like it or if it benefits your business. If not, then move on.
Yep.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate those answers. So here goes another question, and we'll start with Corey first on this one. When thinking about creating a brand identity, what are three things you would consider? So what are three things you would consider when, because we talked about earlier the brand identity. We went in depth on a brand strategy, but when thinking about the brand identity, what are three things that you would consider?
Um, like what I touched on earlier, probably how is your business perceived,
Okay.
right? So how do people, when people
How do
find
you create,
you,
with that being said though, how do you create perception?
so perception is created by, in my opinion, is created by the consistency of the work first and foremost. So how consistent is your work? Does it look, some people will say, I had a really great first haircut, but when I went back to so and so, the second haircut was so can you create consistency in your work? And consistency comes from process. But then also through your social media, right? So for me, social media has been huge, Instagram, TikTok. Um, and then aside from that, I would definitely say, how easy is it for people to book you? That's why, joining Squire, for those of you who don't know, I have a crazy Squire story. With Squire, just in general, Squire has done so much for me. It's really changed my life and introduced me to so many great barbers. Um, so how easy is it for those people to book you? And whenever they are booking you, what does it look like? Is it visually appealing?
Yeah.
That's why Squire is so dope for me because it matches my brand. So I would say that my brand, when you go on my social media, is visually pleasing. And so even whenever throughout that whole process and you do go to book with me, the booking and is visually pleasing as well. So that's why, that's basically how I would do it.
So three. So what I got from you was three. It was perception,
Mhm.
process, and
Yep.
visually appealing. Does that
Yep.
make sense? Yeah.
For sure.
So guys, put that down in the chat. It was perception, process, and be visually appealing. I love that. How about you, Coco? What would you say to the question? What are three things? And this you can even take it from the perspective. And this is why I wanted you two guys, because we have Coco here, who's a shop owner, and Corey, who's an independent barber. So you guys do have two different perspectives. So, Coco, for you, and I'll repeat the question for you. When thinking about creating a brand identity as a shop owner, what are three things you would consider and why?
Quality, consistency, community.
Mm,
Those
I
are
love
those are
that.
my those are my three main things. And if you think
Boom.
about the community, those are the people that are going to visit you weekly. Those are the people that are going to stay with you. Those are the people that are going to follow into all the great
So
things that
true.
your brand has to show. So when you're on the commercial, or when you're on the ad, or when you cut somebody, or when somebody walks through the door, they're the first one to be proud. You know what I'm saying? And the quality, it's definitely always, just like Core said, the work is always going to speak for itself. The structure is always going to speak for itself, and the consistency. How is the booking process? Just like you talked about with Squire, like they've actually turned me from an independent, like like a text and be all over the place Venmo barber, to somebody that could actually think about
Yo,
creating
yo, did
wealth.
you say Venmo barber?
That's yeah,
Oh, put
Venmo
that in the
barber,
chat. Put
right?
that the Venmo barber.
I love me some Venmo, but
Yeah,
it definitely, having Squire has made it so it's like, it's a little bit different. You get to
absolutely.
manage your time a little bit more, but I think that those three things, they really help. Those are the key points for me.
No, I love that. I love that. Okay, and here we go. Here's the next question. We got two more questions, and then we out of here. As someone that's built one of the most powerful barber communities, what are some of the most important brand assets that an up and coming barber should consider creating as they start thinking about brand building? So assets, like what are some assets people should consider creating when they're building their brand?
Who's it on?
Either one of you, go ahead. I'm sorry, I was kind of directing that, but go ahead. If any of you, I mean, something I would think of is like having a hat, having a T-shirt, things like that, because there's things that you can easily help to identify, right, and connect the dots. So, what are some assets that you think are important for a brand? And I'll go with you first, Coco. We'll go there first since you went last.
I mean, I would definitely say that relationships and relatability, though, like,
Mhm.
if you're able to put yourself in spaces where people want to seek after you because of who you deal with,
Mm,
that's always a big one. Who do you relation yourself with? Who are the brands that look to you as an entity? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you can create partnerships and be able to give deliverables to
mm.
people of value, then that speaks a lot.
I love that. Relationships, very powerful asset. What about you, Corey?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, just being able to connect with people. But I mean, that's just the biggest part. Without the people, it doesn't matter. Like that's why I even tell younger barbers, don't focus on necessarily the follower count, but what can you make your followers do? So it doesn't
Mm,
matter if you have, let's say you have 1 million followers, but you can only get 0.1% of that following to physically get up and go do something, then what's the point of the following?
right.
I'll take less followers, but be able to make my followers actually do something. Like even myself right now, like I'm wearing one of my own shirts, but it's like if I'm not doing something or enough for my clients, or if I'm not giving enough value to the people
Right.
around me or the people who follow me, then they're not going to physically purchase them. So it doesn't matter if I make them or not. But if they don't respect what I have going on, they don't feel a part of the process and a part of the journey, then it's all for nothing. So definitely just being able to build that community, build those people around you, adding value, and then diversifying what you're doing if that's what you want to do.
Oh, I love it. I love it. This is great. Last question here. What would you say are some important branding decisions? So, the way I try to describe this question is sometimes you're kind of walking and you're walking to a corner of a building. And on the other side of that, right, you can't see what's on the other side until you turn that corner, right? And there's something that you guys have done that before you were on one side of the pendulum, and then you got to the other side and you look back and say, man, I wish I would have done this differently. So that's what this question is talking about, is like, what are the things that you didn't know that you now know that you changed that you would do differently? What would you say are some important branding decisions barbers need to be aware of when looking to attract new customers? So this is, if you're trying to attract new customers, right? You were in a place where you were at some point you were trying to attract new customers. Now you do it fairly easy, but you
Mhm.
kind of learn some secrets. So I'll repeat the question one more time. what would you say are some important branding decisions barbers need to be aware of when looking to attract new customers? And we'll go with you first, Corey.
I think for me, especially if you're branding yourself on social media, especially, produce the content that you want to attract. So let's say if I want to do a bunch of color clients, then I should be posting as much color as I can. Another thing that's been big for me is like taking models. So maybe you take a model at a reduced rate to produce the content, because you know the content is going to drive that very specific business. So just have an overall goal in mind, have a direction, put a plan to it, and then you'll see a lot of success from there. But if you are on social media and social media is big for you, which it is for so many of us, produce a type of work or post a type of work that you want to see in your chair, and that's what you'll attract.
I love it. So I repeat the question for you one more time, Coco. The question was, what would you say are some important branding decisions barbers need to be aware of when looking to attract new customers?
Well, first off, I'll say every decision. First of all, that's just because like I'm thinking about all the ones that came to my head. Every decision, but when you're looking to attract new customers, you want to make sure that you're being fresh, right? You want to make sure that you're offering something that not everybody around you is given, or at least, you know, give off the optics, right? Is this haircut going to be that much, you know, more game changing for a job interview or something? It depends on how you're going to pitch the product. If you're on media and you're just, you know, oh, here's a cut and a taper and a line, boom, I send you out the door. That's cool. But what are you trying to show? Like, try to find different ways to show the optic of where that haircut's being used. So Curvell, actually from Squire, he really put me on a lot of game. And this one thing that he told me about haircuts, like, kind of changed the way that I looked at it forever. Because obviously a haircut lasts 2 weeks, right? That's the shelf life of a haircut. You know, sometimes some people think that the first 4 days are the best for your haircut. That's the guy that wants to be fresh. But then there's the guy who calls me and tells me, yo, Coke, listen, the one thing I love about your haircuts is that they look so much better 7-8 days later. I like your haircut. I want the haircut from 8 days after. You see what I'm saying? So what Curvell told me is that haircuts travel. Haircuts have so much power. They're in interviews. They're at NBA drafts. They're at workouts. You know, they're changing mindsets and mentalities every day. So, you know, I think that's probably a real big one for me.
Absolutely. No, I love it. Thank you guys so much. And what I do want to say is, as we wrap up here, for anyone who's watching right now, if you're interested in getting Squire, put the word demo in the comments on the live right now. You can put the word demo in the comments and we will reach out to you and get with you to set you up with a demo, because Corey, as a matter of fact, Corey, I know we sent you out a beta test. We can't talk too much about it, but tell me a little bit about that. Were you able to set up the beta test? Were you able to look at it? Tell me a little bit about that experience. What was that like?
I mean, I just love being a part of Squire so much, because Squire is truly for the people. Squire is truly not only for the barber, but it's also for the user. So as much as they think about the barber and they have the barber in mind, they also have the user in mind. And so it's just, even offering things like this, sitting here talking to the people the way that we are right now, showing up at shows, who represents Squire at shows, the people behind the company. So not even the people that people see, but the people behind closed doors that work for the company, just their intention, the intention of the company, song, and just the way that they present themselves from top to bottom. I'm just excited for everybody to get a hold of this beta, because I think that it just really drives home the point that Squire is for the people, the barber, and the user.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, are any of you going to CT Barber Expo?
I'll be there.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Awesome, man. Well, it's going to be great. I'll be in the building. Hopefully, if you guys are on this live, again, if you're interested in Squire and getting a demo done, please put the word demo in the comments. And I hope to see you guys at CT Barber Expo this year. It's going to be a movie. I think it's the most ticket sales they've had to this day. The Barber Grammys, Fat Joe's having an after party. It's going to be amazing. So make sure you guys show up to the CT Barber Expo. thank you guys so much for being on the live with us today and kind of doing this workshop on branding. We're going to continue to do these throughout the months. For those of you who are watching, thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and roll this commercial, and then we'll cut from there. Thank you, man.
All right, bros. Corey, we're going to tap.
Yeah, definitely, Coco. It's love, bro. Pleasure to meet you, bro. I'm going to hit you for sure.
In society, people take doctors' time very valuably. They realize that that's something that can't be wasted. There were some people who weren't looking at barbers' time the same way, and we didn't agree with that. Barbers are professionals. They're educated. They help people's lives in a major way. They're pillars of communities. Their time matters.
Squire is built for everyone. So it's built for the barbers, it's built for the clients, it's built for the shop, and they thought of that for everyone.
I've used a lot of other applications, appointment systems, and it's never been as efficient as Squire was for me. It's like an all-in-one solution, right? You have managing the appointments is a lot easier. You give the platform for people to book. I could talk so many good things about Squire, bro. I could keep going.